Hello, everyone. I wanted to share something really important with you all today, especially as we get a little wiser: how to properly store our food. These are just a few tips I've come across, and I hope you find them helpful. If you do, please feel free to hit that like button and share it with your friends and folks our age. And if you haven't subscribed to the channel yet, please do, so you don't miss out on other useful information about health and good eating. We'll have plenty more to share with each other. Now, getting back to our main topic, a lot of us have gotten into the habit of just putting everything in the refrigerator, thinking that cold is always the best way. But the truth is, there are some foods that not only don't keep any better in the fridge, but they can actually be bad for us. It's a bit concerning to know that, according to the figures, millions of folks get sick every year from eating food that isn't safe, and a good number of seniors are among them. The reason is, as we get older, our immune systems aren't quite as strong as they used to be, making it easier for those little bacteria to cause trouble. And that refrigerator, the very place we trust to keep our food safe, can actually become a breeding ground for those little critters if we're not careful about how we store things. In this article, we're going to take a look together at 5 common foods that you might be storing the wrong way. You might be surprised to learn that putting these things in the refrigerator can cause them to lose their good nutrients, change their taste and how they feel in your mouth, and even create things that aren't good for our health. So, let's learn how to have meals that are both delicious and safe to eat. First, potatoes. Starting off our list is the humble potato, a staple in just about every kitchen. Many folks buy potatoes and pop them right into the refrigerator, but this is actually a big no-no. When raw potatoes are exposed to cold temperatures, the starch in them turns into sugar much faster. Now, that might not sound like a big deal, but when you go to cook these potatoes, especially at high temperatures like frying or roasting, the sugar and amino acids combine to create something called acrylamide. Acrylamide is a chemical that has been shown to cause cancer in animals, and scientists are still looking into its effects on us humans. Not only that, but the texture of potatoes suffers when they're kept in the fridge. They can become grainy, mushy, and often turn dark. Instead of being nice and flavorful and nutritious, cold-stored potatoes can end up being both sweet and kind of mealy, and they might even pose a health risk. If you've ever wondered why your roasted potatoes tasted a little sweet, well, your refrigerator might just be the culprit. So, what's the right way to store potatoes? Keep them in a cool, dry, and dark place, not in that cold and damp refrigerator. This way, they'll stay firm, taste great, and be safe to eat. Second, bread. A convenient and familiar food. A lot of us think that putting bread in the fridge will help it stay fresh longer. But actually, the refrigerator is kind of the enemy of good bread. The reason has to do with a process called retrogradation. This is when the starch molecules in bread start to crystallize when they get cold. This happens pretty quickly, making your bread dry out and get hard much faster than if you left it at room temperature. Bread that's been in the fridge will have a tough, dry, and crumbly texture, which really takes away from enjoying it. What's more, when bread loses its moisture in the refrigerator, it can become a perfect place for mold to grow once you take it out. Mold thrives in damp environments, and some types of mold can produce mycotoxins, which are harmful substances that can cause serious health problems. If you want to keep your bread for a longer time, try putting it in the freezer. Freezing will stop the mold from growing and slow down that retrogradation process without messing up the bread's texture too much. When you're ready to eat it, just thaw it out. So, remember, don't keep your bread in the refrigerator. Store it in a sealed container at room temperature if you're going to eat it within a few days, and put it in the freezer if you need it to last longer. Third, onions. Now, you might be a little surprised to see onions on this list. Many folks think onions can just sit anywhere, including in the refrigerator. But the truth is, doing this can cause some real problems. Onions naturally have a thin outer layer that helps protect them, keeping moisture in and maintaining their flavor. But when you put onions in the fridge, this balance gets thrown off. The cold and humid environment inside the refrigerator makes onions absorb moisture faster, especially if they've been cut. This makes the onions get soft and kind of slimy, and they're more likely to get moldy. And that's not all. Onions can also cause another issue. They can make things smelly. When onions are in the fridge, they release sulfur compounds, which not only make them go bad faster, but can also get into other foods. You've probably experienced butter or fruit that smells like onions, right? Another potential risk is bacteria. Cut onions, even if they're in a sealed container, can still create a place where bacteria can grow in the refrigerator. So, it's best not to keep cut onions in the fridge for too long. So, what's the right way to store onions? For whole onions, keep them in a cool, dry, and dark place, like in a pantry or cupboard. As for cut onions, they should only go in the refrigerator if they're in a sealed container and you plan to use them as soon as possible, ideally within a day or two. In short, don't put whole onions in the refrigerator, or you might end up spoiling them, losing their nutrients, and making your fridge smell like onions. Fourth, tomatoes. Tomatoes are another food that often suffers because folks store them the wrong way. We often think that putting tomatoes in the refrigerator will help them stay fresh longer. But actually, the cold temperature is kind of the enemy of both the flavor and the texture of tomatoes. Scientifically speaking, tomatoes are a tropical fruit, and they really don't like the cold. When you put tomatoes in the fridge, the cold air disrupts their natural enzymes, which stops the ripening process. And it's during this ripening process that tomatoes develop their characteristic flavor. Without it, tomatoes can end up being bland, watery, and kind of mushy, losing all their good taste. The texture of tomatoes also takes a hit. Refrigerated tomatoes lose their firmness, becoming soft and not very appealing. You won't get that nice juicy bite of a fresh tomato anymore. What's even more concerning is that cold storage can actually reduce the amount of vitamin C in tomatoes. So, you're not just losing out on flavor, but also on the health benefits. Even the skin of tomatoes can get wrinkly if they're left in the cold for too long, which doesn't look very nice. If you've ever cut into a tomato and found it to be tasteless and watery, chances are it's been chilled out for too long. So, what's the right way to store tomatoes? Keep them at room temperature, away from direct sunlight, and stem side down to help them retain moisture. If your tomatoes are already very ripe, go ahead and eat them or cook with them. Don't put them in the fridge. Fifth, garlic. Garlic is a common seasoning, even considered a bit of a superfood, because it contains lots of beneficial compounds for our health. However, these benefits can disappear, or worse, it can become harmful if you store garlic in the refrigerator. Whole heads of garlic can last for many weeks, even months, at room temperature, especially in a cool, dry, and well-ventilated place. But when you put garlic in the fridge, the humidity and cold temperature can interfere with their natural preservation process. The cloves can start to sprout early, which changes their flavor, making them bitter and kind of rubbery, and reduces the amount of allicin, a compound that's good for you. More dangerously, chopped or minced garlic stored in oil in the refrigerator can create conditions for a bacteria called Clostridium botulinum to grow. This is the bacteria that causes botulism, a rare but very serious illness that can lead to paralysis and even death. So, never store chopped garlic in oil in the refrigerator. Instead, keep whole garlic heads in a cool, dry place. If you're using chopped garlic, use it right away or preserve it with vinegar or lemon juice to reduce the risk of bacteria. So, there you have it. We've taken a look together at 5 common foods that you might want to keep away from your refrigerator. I hope this information gives you all some helpful knowledge for storing your food better and keeping yourselves and your families healthy. If you found these tips useful, please don't forget to hit that like button and share it with your loved ones. And if you haven't subscribed to the channel yet, please do, so you don't miss out on more great tips about health and good eating. We always appreciate your support and hearing from you in the comments below. And just a little heads up for everyone, in our next article, we're going to continue exploring 4 more foods that you should absolutely not put in the refrigerator. So, stay tuned for more interesting secrets to help keep our meals delicious and safe.